have you ever noticed that there's no content on mainstream media channels or even Netflix or Amazon to find, things about gold and silver, collecting, stuff like that? It's just very hard to find, which obviously makes YouTube a prime place to pick up on different channels. But I think it's interesting because I'm sure we all watch some form of regular, media, whether it be Netflix or cable or things like that. So today I wanted to share a few things that I found on different media to do with gold and silver. So first and foremost, a lot of the things that you're going to find are, treasure hunting related. Those are always endearing because, again, who doesn't like, history and treasure? I would think that for most stackers, that's right up their alley. The hard part, though, is that, again, with, today's production and media, a lot of it is hype and fluff and kind of keeping you on the edge if they're going to ever find anything. And it becomes kind of a, self-fulfilling prophecy that they don't end up finding anything. But these particular shows that I'm going to talk about are kind of a good mix. I don't want to give away anything, but they're a little bit more worth your time. And they really do delve into kind of the historical aspects, but also, the actual tangible things that are, that are found, let's say, or not found. So the first one is actually pretty interesting find, and it was kind of a random show. It's actually a Netflix show. And it's called Adaks Gold. I'll link all the different things that I talk about in the description because they're kind of random names. But this show was called Adaks Gold. Adak is a place in Alaska, in the Aleutians, and it's a show about in a pirate horde that was reputed to be lost up there. And it wasn't something like super long ago. It was kind of within the last 150 years. But it transcends into the modern era because, after World War II, this was something that was, still being, people were still interested in it. People knew the history of it. So this show, I think it's only one season, but it was actually really interesting. It was kind of something I could see, like, stackers being interested in that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing where it makes you want to get out your metal detector and actually go down there and, hey, book me a ticket to Adak. But the other interesting thing is Adak itself apparently was some type of military outpost in World War II. I believe it was a naval base, some type of base. I believe it was probably the Navy that had a base out there. Small base, but still a base nonetheless. And, even at that time, there were people who knew this legend of, Adaks Gold. So definitely a show that I would say if you're bored and you're looking for, content that's outside of YouTube, that show is actually pretty well produced, pretty interesting, and pretty relatable. That's the thing I like about, shows like that. It's got to be somewhat relatable. It can't be something that's, too far out there. The next one I would say, and I can't remember exactly which platform it is. I think it might have been an Amazon show. Let's see, was it Amazon? I think so. I'm not sure if it was a History Channel show, which, some people have issues with History Channel shows because they may be overhyped and, overproduced, etc., etc. But with regard to this show, it was actually called Cooper's Gold. And it's actually a really interesting story. It's about the astronaut Gary Cooper, or Gordon Cooper. And apparently, when he was up in space, he was doing things in somewhat of a classified way, like taking pictures with very high quality optics of Earth, looking, I'm assuming, spying on the Russians, so for, bases and missile sites and things like that. But when he wasn't on that side of the Earth, he was actually looking into the ocean with those optics, for shipwrecks and all kinds of other stuff. And so when he was up there, he was taking notes of all these different things. And when he came back, he ended up kind of keeping a journal of it. Now, the interesting part was he ended up kind of, I don't know how the relationship started, but he ended up becoming friends with the treasure hunter. I think his name was Roger Miklos. And, kind of sharing that information of where he had seen these things from space in the Caribbean mainly. But very interesting show. A lot of history, a lot of cool facts that you wouldn't think of these things, but we all know they're going on. And again, stackers tend to like this kind of thing. This, somewhat conspiracy, somewhat, nobody talks about, but also, precious metals. So I would recommend that show as well. I'll figure out what platform it's on. Again, that one's called Cooper's Gold. Now, the final one that I'll talk about is it's kind of a love or hate for a lot of people, and for good reason. Make no mistake, because it's kind of like reading a book that never ends and never gets to the point. And that one is Oak Island. So Oak Island's a History Channel show, majorly produced. Definitely, keeps you just on the edge of like, oh my god, they're gonna find something, and then they really don't. Especially for how long that show's been on. That show's been on for almost a decade now, I think. Maybe a little bit less, but a long time. It is apparently still one of the most popular shows on cable. So, I mean, there's that. But the cool thing about that show is that Oak Island is something that people have been trying to figure out for 100 years, more than 100 years. I guess the whole thing started a couple hundred years ago, but the amount of people that were interested in it, and the historical figures that have put money into it, trying to figure out whatever it was that happened there. And make no mistake, something had to have happened there. When you really watch the show, like, this isn't something where somebody came up with a legend and it's just all BS. Like, the amount of work and engineering that went into whatever was being done there is pretty nuts. So this season on the show, good lord, they're on the 10th season, 12th season. They're actually finding some pretty interesting stuff of note. I mean, they're not finding the run of the mill, hey, I found a piece of piece of aid, or something it's cool, but it's it's not going to knock your socks off. They're actually finding some pretty stuff that would be considered treasure, which is actually pretty interesting. Again, there's no reason for it to be sitting there on Nova Scotia, off of Nova Scotia. So very interesting show. I wish it wasn't as slow as it is, because it's just one of those things where they're trying to figure out not only what happened, but obviously searching for, gold and silver and treasure and whatever the heck was, whatever it is that is there. But I mean, just the whole thing itself, the story is the part that really captivates, because it's just like, the more you kind of go down that rabbit hole, you realize, okay, if this was going on hundreds of years ago, the engineering that it would have taken, not just anybody could have done the things that, apparently occurred there. So there had to be some reason. Nobody goes out of their way that far to really, bury nothing. They're not burying, barrels of coal. There's some reason that you went through all of this trouble. So very interesting show. Again, definitely on the slower side, but definitely something that, if you like that kind of stuff and you're interested in that kind of stuff, and you want something to kind of take a breather from the YouTube hype and et cetera, that kind of show can definitely fit the bill. The first two, I would say, are more off the beaten path, which makes them, to me, more endearing. Whereas, again, because Oak Island has become such a well-known show and it's been around so long, there's a lot of production that goes into it, a lot of cliffhanging, and when, it's not really anything. But the great part about that show now is that they are actually finding things that are, of interest. They're not just, your normal run-of-the-mill stuff. So if you're bored with, again, seeing all the usual content on YouTube, you can only talk so much about certain things. Definitely give those a try. I'll link all three in the description.